Okay. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Porn to Purpose podcast, episode 7. We got a special guest with us here in the building, Joseph DiRoma from Joseph DiRoma LLC. And Joe, welcome, brother. Joe had us or had me on his podcast back in 2020. It was one of the first podcasts that I had the pleasure of doing. And I was so honored to be a participant in Joe's previous podcast. And I thought it'd be great to have Joe on the Porn to Purpose podcast and share with our community the work he's doing in his own life, in the men's leadership community, and in his community in the world. So, Joe, great to have you here, brother. It's an honor. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and you crushed the podcast, man. I always love talking with guys like yourself that get super authentic, they get real, and aren't afraid to talk about the stuff that's really going on in the lives and hearts of men. So I appreciate and honor you for that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much, man. Well, I've been watching and communicating with you a little bit about some of the things you've been working on, and I'd love to just maybe start today, brother, by just giving you an opportunity just to introduce yourself, say hello, and let us know a little bit about what you've been working on, brother.
Absolutely. Like you said, I recently left the North American movement from the Successful Male, and that was been my passion and purpose work for the last 2.5 years. I currently work in the restaurant tech space as well, and I lead teams there and build out training and SOPs for all that stuff. I know you and I have talked about SOPs and kind of nerded out a little bit on that. And then I also have a coaching practice where I work on personal and professional leadership, one-on-one, and do some group coaching. And then, we're also getting ready to my wife and I to launch a brand as well called the Modern Body Project. I'm also a full-time father. I have a son, he just turned 12. And, all that stuff really keeps me busy. And I'm a busy guy. And that was, I just like to work. I like to make an impact. And, I'm getting ready to start a new podcast here in the next month, where you and I will be doing an incredible mini series on the pornography industry and its effects on men, positively, negatively, and all things talking about porn. So I'm excited on that, right? Talking about real issues, real things going on, and the stuff that no one really wants to talk about.
Yeah, brother. So crucial. So crucial. I'm really looking forward to that myself. And I love to hear all the stuff that you got going on, brother. I would love to invite you to share. Would you share with us maybe a little bit more about the work that you're doing in the coaching space? I know you're a Newfield certified coach, focusing in ontology, somatic disposition, emotional intelligence. Can you maybe talk with us a little bit more about some of the areas you're studied in and some of the ways in which you're supporting your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the incredible things about being a coach is on that level is really seeing the breakthroughs that people have of awareness and new possibilities that they were previously blind to in their current reality, right? So for most people, they ask, like, what the hell is ontology, man? Like, what the hell are you talking about? Right?
That's what I said.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So ontology is the study of being, right? So our being, and it's our body, emotions, and language. And, body is such an important part that gets neglected often. And that's where the somatic disposition work comes in, because somatics is the study of body language and energy signatures. And then, the emotional intelligence part is very, very important because, emotions reside in the body, right? And a lot of people don't realize that. And so it's very important that we understand what emotions are and the exploration of all the emotions within the human experience that are available to us whenever we wish to leverage them. So a lot of the work I do with clients is, sitting in an emotion right? Like I'll take one for instance, right? One that people are always, inclined to avoid and try to distract themselves from is sadness, right? We have a culture that is just always like celebrating, and I have to be happy all the time. And to be honest, it's bullshit, right? Sadness is a very fruitful emotion. Some of my best creative moments have resided in a deep emotion of sadness because it brings you to another level neurologically that you wouldn't have available to you if you were strictly in joy or happiness, right? Sadness is also very important in terms of the grieving process, right? And not avoiding that, but really allowing myself to feel that loss, this person that meant so much to me, and bowing down to them in reverence. That sadness plays a part in that. I'm not saying that I need to sit in that sadness for, extended periods of time where it owns my life, but it's important that I let it surface, question it, see what it's trying to teach me about the world and about my life, about relationships, and then shift out of it when it no longer serves me. And so much of that, right, is using the body work, understanding what emotions you're in and gaining that awareness. So, that's just one example. And then the last thing is language, right? Our self-talk. Everything is generated through language. All action is generated through conversations, right? We're creating a podcast right now, live on Facebook, right? Live in your group. What we're generating right now is whatever that person is receiving it as it as. Your and I's intent is to make an impact in your community and affect hopefully some change in thinking and thought and other things for people to see things differently, to take new actions, right? I think we're both aligned on that. So understanding how those thoughts surface, right? Because if emotions are in the body, then thoughts are in the mind, right? So then ultimately the goal is to create coherency between the body, emotions, and language. So then you begin to see new actions that you need to take in your life ultimately to gain the results that you want. And that's different than traditional coaching, because if I just tell you, Matt, to go do this, right? Yeah, you're going to generate the results, but you're not going to deeply ingrain the learning. This is more about epistemology, which is the study of learning and how we learn, and declaring myself a beginner at life, and declaring, if all you focused on is the same thing for so long and that's how you've always done it, well, when you shift into trying to do something new, you're a beginner at it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's accepting that and allowing learning to take place. And then once you ingrain the learning and have a good practice over time, then guess what? Those practices then generate the results you really want.
Yeah.
So
Love that, brother. Let me ask you this, brother. You talked about now. Who might a typical client of yours be, Joe?
leaders in business.
Leaders, a lot of men.
Yeah. Men and women.
Is that right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What conversation do you think is relevant? Do you think is important for men to be having and maybe understanding in regard to the conversation around emotional intelligence and the importance of feeling, understanding, and being with emotions?
That's a good question, right? Because a lot of the things that we talk about in today's society for the modern man is, you have to be this, you have to have it all figured out. You have to be the pinnacle of strength and understanding, right? And quite often that may serve you best to be in that space. But I would also challenge men to get open and vulnerable with other men, to allow that masculine energy flow into them when everything's not okay, right? So one of the simple things that I tell men specifically that I work with and have coached over the last two and a half years is that it's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. And when you are not honoring those other emotions that in your mind you see as negative, but they really aren't. They're neither positive nor negative. It's just the emotion. It's either, is it serving me or is it not in this moment, right? and that's the choice. So again, getting to a space where men can pick up the phone and say, listen, man, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm not feeling okay. And here's why. When you do that, you're allowing masculine energy to flow back to you and allow your brother to show up for you. Right. And guess what? Here's the thing I always tell all of them. When someone calls you, Matt, and they're looking for advice, they're going through a rough time, or, you know, they just have some shit going on and they need to talk about it. Like, how does that make you feel?
I love it, brother. I love to like step up and support in that and give of myself in that way for sure. It's energizing, in fact.
Sure. So so you don't think like, oh man, what a little bitch, or like, oh man, get your shit together, or you're not judging them, right?
Well, that's my intention. Certainly, yes.
Sure. You feel honored. You're
Yeah.
like, hey man, privileged, and you just show up, and like you said, it energizes you. So, and I think we all feel that way. So then what? I'm not gonna do that for other men in my life.
Right.
I'm not gonna honor them in the two-way street of healthy relationships to do
Right.
that,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm trapped in self-centered fear that you're gonna think less of me because I don't have everything in life all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
It's all ego, man. It's
Yeah.
all ego, and what it does is it's totally disregarding our own humanity,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm a human first and I'm a male second.
Yeah, brother.
Right. So again, that's what I tell my men. And I think once you start getting to that level where you're confident enough to sit in a room and ask questions, say I don't know, right? Say I'm not okay, but feel totally at peace inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's real confidence. That's real strength.
Mm-hmm.
That's real authenticity. And guess what? If you're listening to this right now, that's incredibly attractive to women.
Amen. Amen. Joe, where do you think that the expectation or the standard for men to be this emotionless kind of stoic male has come from, either in society or in the world? Do you have any suspicions around where that may have originated?
Sure, sure. Society, it stems from, you know, generational context that's passed down from their fathers. It's just this, we haven't placed any emphasis on evolution. You know, we do in the tech space, right? But imagine if we evolved emotionally in the same sense, right? You know, about 400 years ago, we separated the spiritual domain and the logical domain, right? And we gave birth to science as we know it. We gave birth to you know, to logic and all that way of thinking. And then on the other side was spirituality and religion, and you separated the two, whereas beforehand they were always as one.
Right.
So you learned knowledge emotionally at the same time. They weren't two separate things, right? Like you would be talking in your business emotionally and spiritually, just as you would if you were in church, right? Like, I mean, a lot of our heroes, which we have talked about, you know, Socrates, Marcus Aurelius, and, you know, a lot of these, you know, more ancient guys were very in tune with their emotions, you know, and it was a part of their learning. It was a part of their life. It was a part of an expression, you know, and it wasn't something where, oh, if you don't have it all figured out, like, you know, there's something wrong with you know? So like showing up in that space is, it can be very difficult when, okay, like if there's something wrong with me, I need to go figure it out at church or therapy, you know? And it was broken off that way. And it's definitely not something that you discuss at work, right? Even though we're all experiencing all of the same things all the time, like you don't talk about it, right? Like you just don't talk about it. And so what happens is then we devoid ourselves of true connection.
Yeah.
You know, I know when I was in the corporate environment, I didn't really hold back on that stuff. And guess what? I built some of the strongest relationships as a result of that, because there's other people that, they're waiting for someone to talk about some stuff like that,
Right. Yep.
So it's just, it's hard though, right? Because you don't want to go against the status quo.
Yeah.
You don't want to stand out really,
Mhm.
and then there's some of us are that's just what we do.
Yeah. Joe, what are some or maybe some of the adverse impacts of men who are maybe more emotionally suppressed? What are you seeing there?
So there's another side, right? There's men that this is just from my research, which I've done hours and hours of research, worked with tons of men. There's almost like two sides to the coin. There's like these emotionalist men. They don't know how to communicate properly. They are, like you said, just very, just like a statue. And then on the other side, there's these needy, codependent men that are way more feminine. They most of the time were raised in a fatherless home, and they have no idea how to show up in masculine energy. And again, they're just very emotional. They're ruled by their emotions. They come off as desperate to women,
Mm.
and they're people pleasers, right? So in that space, the work is a little bit different, right? Rather than because it's a balance. It's a balance between those two. It's a balance between the head and the heart.
Yeah.
It's a balance between logic and emotion, right? The strength comes from creating coherency between the mind and heart intelligence.
Mhm.
So if a man is always just living, in his heart all the time, and that's all he ever is, and he's ruled by his emotions, and everything that he thinks about comes from the shocking, pathways from his emotions, like the program's running.
Yeah.
And then the same can be said of somebody that places so much emphasis on knowledge and logic and, is just totally devoid of emotions. Then they're really not experiencing the fullness and richness of life, right? Because most of us, it's like you feel a certain way and you're like, wow, why do I even feel like that right now?
Mhm.
Where's that coming from,
Yeah.
right? So in both instances, they're both in their own way, but different, not allowing their own humanity to take place.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig that, man. We see a lot of this conversation, and we introduce a lot of this conversation around emotions, emotional intelligence, emotional processing. I'll call it emotional management for the sake of this conversation inside the Making Peace with Porn community. A lot of men are either escaping emotions or maybe dealing with emotions, energy in an unhealthy way. And so we can see that in any form of addiction, whether it be maybe drug or alcohol abuse, food. I know I eat emotionally a lot, or porn or sex. What have you seen in the maybe mismanagement of emotions and its correlation to addiction, Joe?
Hmm. So the first thing I'll say is that someone that has dealt with drug and alcohol addiction myself. I haven't touched anything in over 12 years. I can certainly relate. So again, it's not an easy task, right? It's not something that's hard to accept, and it's not something that's easy to transcend either, right? So if you're out there, just know that you're not alone, and I'll say that. But at the core of I think of what your question is alluding to is that we really just want to change the way that we feel,
Mm.
right? Whether it's I'm going to go, pound some drinks, or I'm going to go, take care of myself and masturbate to some porn, right? Like if that's what your poison is, right? And you're using that to change the way you feel, fill some sort of intrinsic hole that you have, that only God and self-love can fill, you're always going to feel empty, because nothing extrinsic can ever fill that intrinsic hole, ever. You know, whether it's cars, clothes, women, sex, drugs, booze, houses, jobs, titles. You know, we're talking about all a bunch of things that we place in society as the pinnacle of what success really means.
Yeah.
But in reality, what it really is I need to get clear on what I value most in life, right? And then use those values as a barometer for my behavior, right? And then I'll start beginning to raise my level of integrity with my behavior to hit those standards of values, and self-worth will follow, confidence will follow, I'll gain fulfillment. And then I get to a point where I've been doing this work for so long that I can come and meet with Matt, I can come and meet with others and create this magnetic energy of people that want to be around me, so that I may serve them with all of the work I've done to rebuild myself and give that away. And then everything that you were looking for to fill that hole with is found within the service of others and awakening them to the possibilities of who they really are.
Yeah. 100%, man. You know, so much of the work that we're doing inside the Making Peace with Porn community, you know, correlates to that as well. You know, we really support our guys, and we find the root of a lot of addiction, you know, is a sense of purposelessness, you know, not having a powerful why in life, not having a reason to live for, you know. So like so much of our work is about helping them connect to the first part of the why, which is, you know, what I'm no longer willing to tolerate, the pain, what am I moving away from? But the second phase of that is, right now, what am I moving toward? What am I committed to? You know, what is something that energizes me and inspires me, and something I'm saying yes to? You know, if I'm going to abstain from said behavior, you know, what am I going to move into that's more meaningful and essentially purposeful in my life? I think that's such a big piece of the puzzle, is having something to live for, you know?
It's the truth, man.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
especially in the men's space.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, all humans need to have that, but especially in the men's space, a purposeless man is a confused man, and a confused man is void of confidence.
Yeah.
And all of us men want to be confident men. That's
Mm-hmm.
one like single trait that we all really want.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just don't know how to get it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think they say like a man without purpose, you know, it's akin to like a rudderless ship. Have you heard that analogy?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig that. So what do you say, man? I mean, Joe, if we could maybe just touch on that conversation around purpose a little bit more. What do you say to the man who maybe feels as though he's not clear on purpose, not connected to purpose, or wavering in purpose in his own life?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, because it's a question you have to ask yourself. I
Yeah.
can't answer that for you, man.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get you to a point where you can sit down quietly with yourself at a kitchen table with pen and paper, and just start writing things down that come to you.
Mm-hmm.
The phone's off, the TV's off, social media's off, your wife's not around, your kids aren't around. It's just you. Turn everything off and get clear on what it is for you. What is my purpose?
Mm.
And what questions allow us to go inside, right? Like good old Socrates, he said, you know, the basis of his life's work was that he believed he had no real answers to give anyone, just questions to ask.
Yeah.
So when I look at heroes like that in my life, right, when we come from an educational system that indoctrinates us into having an addiction for answers, we're graded on answers, we're tested on answers, we have to memorize this stuff and answer. It traps us in a place of knowing. And then guess what? I feel even more worthless because I don't know what my purpose is, and I just can't get to a place where I can think about it because my mind just won't shut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I don't sit there and get practice on sitting with myself, I'm never going to be able to answer myself the important questions that I need to ask.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Sometimes it seems like life is moving at such a rapid pace. We don't even have the space to slow down to consider, okay, what are the greater implications of my life? It's like a lot of us, a lot of men are living in more of a survival type energy, and a big part of, I think, something that's becoming increasingly, I've been a mindfulness and meditation practitioner for over a decade now, but I think it's becoming more and more evident, especially as my life increases in, I think, in momentum and speed, if you will, is like being intentional about slowing down and creating space, so I do have that peace of mind to kind of go in and do that deeper work and ask those deeper questions, and a really exercise I find really cool that we do inside the Making Peace with Porn community, as we're supporting our men in connecting to this idea of purpose, because I find that a lot of men don't live in purpose or on purpose. One, because either they've never taken the time to do this deeper asking of what is my purpose, or they have an idea but they don't believe it's possible. So like, what's the point? I know I've been there. So an exercise that we do inside of our community, as we're beginning to support our guys and tapping into this idea of purpose, we have an exercise called Dream Like a Little Kid, and we set up this kind of this scenario where, all right, imagine if you had $100 million in the bank, which I know is an obscene amount of money, but just to kind of say, all right, if money was no object, and everything was taken care of, and all I had to do each day was just follow my own bliss and do what I love, like, what would that be? Or what would that look like? And we have a series of questions. What would I do with my time? What hobbies would I pursue? What would I create? Who would I serve? How would I serve? What would I study? And like, if I could do anything I want, and resources were no object, like, what would I do with my time? And just begin to play, because I feel like that really does speak to our purpose. When we're kids, we have no problem, like, being like, oh, I want to be an astronaut and I want to do this and I want to do that. We have no problem dreaming, but it's like, as we grow old, it's like that's kind of squelched a bit. So that this exercise is really designed just to help our guys just play again and begin to tap into your gifts and like, what is your bliss? And I think that's such an important kind of starting point in that conversation.
That's huge. And here's why. How many kids do you see feeling less than or judgmental on themselves because they asked the question?
Right.
They just want to know stuff, man. They just, hey, what's this do? What's that do? What's this all about?
Yeah.
Like, that's why I love being a father, is it pulls me into, and I always say he's my greatest teacher on not only life, but myself. Right? Because like you said, and what you spoke of specifically in my work, that's the somatic disposition of flexibility, which is on the opposite side of resolution, resolution is very forward energy. It's the warrior. You're like, I'm dialed in. I'm going to get this shit done. Flexibility is the opposite, where it's just flowing. It's like a dance. You're playing, there's very playful energy. It's flowing. And it's very nimble, and within that space you discover curiosity, right? And within curiosity, some of the best questions can be surfaced. And then, so much of the accomplishment in life is really determined on the quality of our questions.
Yes.
If we're asking better questions, we're seeking better results, right? So I love that you do that. That's something that I do with all of my clients, in terms of like, hey man, just go dance in your living room to a funny song and see what happens, right? And then see how much you judge yourself for doing that. Like, it's not okay. Like, oh, quit acting like a little kid. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's so true. But right, like, once you get to a place of confidence and you and your purpose, you can go and do that in front of a group of people and feel nothing but the joy and the comfort and the playfulness that comes along with that. You're not thinking about everyone else. You're just enjoying yourself, man.
Yeah.
And then guess what? That gets other people to join in.
Yeah, brother. I love that. I love that. Um, I'd love to touch on Joe, so we're obviously having this conversation kind of in front of the audience of the Making Peace with Porn community, and the work that we're doing in Porn to Purpose. And so much of our process is about moving from this pit of pornography or addiction into lives of greater purpose. So I think this conversation really aligns. And what I found in my journey was that pornography, right, felt very much out of integrity, very much out of alignment with the man that I felt called to be, especially in an addictive relationship with it, or a toxic relationship, compulsive relationship with it. And what I found, that toxic behavior, be it pornography, or it could be drug use or alcohol abuse or whatever it might be, there are certain things that when we engage with them and we know that they're out of alignment with our calling, with our sense of conscious or our true self, that it impacts, one, our ability to step more fully into purpose, or connect more with our purpose, or ascend more into purpose. And it also it left me feeling like less worthy of being in service, because I didn't feel integrity. I didn't feel like I could really look someone in the eyes as honestly as I wanted to, or speak and serve to them at the level I wanted to, because I wasn't integrity in my own life. Can you
Yes,
speak to any of that stuff at all, brother?
of course I can, man. And that is powerful what you just said. Integrity is one of my top core values, one of my top five. It's one of the single greatest indicators of how you are going to really feel day to day. It's just how it is, right? How you feel about yourself. And I know you and I have had, personal conversations in terms of pornography and things like that. And someone with your kind of expertise, I'm, trying to gather as much learnings from you as well of what you see in that. And, like I said, dealing with my alcohol and drug addiction, a lot of that sex and pornography one goes along with that. That wasn't something that necessarily where I took on those same behaviors I did with those other substances, but like pornography has been very normalized. So much so that it's even, kind of almost like drinking, right? So men that I know that are using it addictively, it's hard for them to see a problem with it, because, it is normalized, it is available, it is there, right? And so one of the things that I had to really get clear on was like, okay, is this, I asked myself, is this a problem for me? Am I doing this to change the way I feel? Is it not purely just a natural desire? Am I avoiding consequences of something? Like the same application that I used in assessing my alcohol addiction, it applies here, right? So you can kind of replace them, right, with what they are. And the thing is like, as I began to increase my level of consciousness, increase my connection spiritually, yeah, we talked about this, increase my spiritual development, I just found that was, it lessened. Maybe some of it too was with age, where it was like a daily practice, then turned into once a week or whatever. But I would also say too, I have a very healthy relationship with my wife. We have a very healthy, intimate relationship as well, with deep connection. And a lot of that serves me to where I'm not seeking, the physical natural gratification from that release, right? Because my needs are being met by what I really want, right? So there's also something to be said about that, and really getting clear with your relationships too, and are your needs being met there? I think there needs to be some sort of balance. Women they're just not wired like us, so they're not going to be, knocking down our door like we are always after them. It's just how it is, right? But what I have found in my own journey is, I don't often just be so impulsive, right? Like things are just very flowing, right? And I also don't feel guilty about things. That's another big indicator for me. Like, when I do this, how do I feel? How do I feel afterwards? How do I feel later on in the day? Like, is it renting space in my head, you know? And so I think that, to answer your question, is exactly what integrity is. Like, am I being true to myself with my behavior? And am I, and again, this is at my level, right? Where I'm at, where I've done a lot of work to have that level of awareness. And I'm not trapped in blindness or self-deception trying to rationalize my behavior either, right? So there's no one, talking to me about my behavior. There's no one trying to, get me to change. There's no one, saying that what I'm doing is destructive or that I'm not connecting. So again, if you're someone that is struggling with that stuff in terms of pornography, like Matt said, integrity is the number one reason that you need to get in line with that, because purpose is also very much in alignment with integrity. Because when you're fulfilling your purpose, you're living and leading with your highest integrity.
Yeah, man, that's really good stuff, man. And I think we're getting into kind of the subtleties of this conversation, I think, as well. But when we talk about listening to our conscience, living from our higher selves, that's like, to me, man, in my own internal conversation, that's like learning to listen to the voice of God, whatever it is that calls us and calls us forth into that next great version of ourselves, into that next great version of our lives. I think that's something we get to learn to tune into. You spoke to levels of awareness, and you spoke to levels of consciousness, and we don't kind of like put this at the forefront of the conversation in our community, but so much of our work really is about growing the man, helping the man grow in mind, body, and in spirit every day. And kind of part of my own kind of secret work that I'm doing is really supporting the men in evolution of their own consciousness, in their own levels of awareness, as we do tap into integrity, as we do tap more into purpose, and as we do abstain from the things which are toxic to us. And pornography is not toxic for everyone, just for some, but for those that it is, and maybe again, it's drugs or alcohol or food or whatever it might be. As we tune more into that, and as we listen to that, and as we abstain from that more, what I find is that our standard for feeling good and our standard for living in integrity grows, and our tolerance of kind of that old way of being decreases. It's like, so as we see and as we experience kind of like the good stuff, or what it feels like to live in integrity, living out of integrity just becomes less and less tolerable. It's like an energetic tax in many ways.
Yep. Guilt and shame can be very powerful.
Yeah. It's an energetic drain, I find, So may I just kind of transition here, brother? And as I was going through your work and some of the stuff that you had shared with me and your kind of, and your bio and stuff, I know you spoke to this idea of like living, like the success blueprint, if you will. I think a lot of men in our society, and we're all guilty of it, or have this tendency to kind of live more one-dimensionally. They're great at making money, at bringing home the family and being a provider or a supporter, but maybe they're not connected or showing up spiritually or within their relationships at the level that they would like to be, or maybe their health is failing. And when I hear you talk about your success blueprint and stuff like that, I kind of think about living a more multi-dimensional kind of life, or showing up as a more empowered multi-dimensional being. Can you speak, if I'm on the right track with that, can you speak a little bit more to what does it look like, and is it possible to live a fully engaged multi-dimensional life in all key areas or domains of our life?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm going to give you more than that, but the answer is yes. My good friend and mentor, Ron Malhotra, who created the Success Blueprint for the Successful Male, he and I's conversations have always been very aligned in that facet, right? Because so much of men's development has been focused on, if I just have some rock hard chiseled abs, like you said, I'm successful, right? Or if I have the corner office with the title and I'm the big shot at work. I have tons of career success. Great. Or I'm lighting my cigars with burning $100 bills, and I got more money than man can think of. Or I'm just this at home guy, and that's all I ever focus on. And I totally hide my gifts from the rest of the world and pursue no career and don't get outside of myself. And my whole focus is just my family and spiritual development. Like, what I would say to that is you only get one shot at this thing, man. As my good friend always says to me, there is no dress rehearsal. Like, you're on stage right now. And listen, all of these areas are very important to life. I didn't say that. It's just a principle. It's a truth, right? They all have their advantages when you focus on them. I think the level of success that you wish to have in all of them is what's very subjective. We must, like we said before with the integrity thing, we must define it for ourselves. There's some people that feel as though, 2 or 3 hours a day with their family that's what they're comfortable with. And that's fine. And that's what they have with their relationship with their wife and their kids, and everything's happy and healthy, and that's great. And, others, it's, okay, I want to have more of this, but I want less of that. There is no right or wrong answer. I think the question needs to be is what is right for you? What do you really want? Right? Now, that being said, there's such an emphasis in society on success being predicated solely on how many zeros in your bank account are, or I'm going to admire or even idolize this person because they're great in one craft or they have a lot of money. I think you're really selling yourself short if you're not looking at the character of the man or the relationships that he holds. Like, okay, great. You're an awesome musician and you can dance, but you beat your wife or girlfriend. Like, I don't want to pay attention to really anything that you have going on, because to me, you're a little bitch and you need to work on yourself, because real men don't hit women, right? But there's plenty of people that admire this person because they're good at one thing. Well, like that, there's more to life than just that, right? And so the problem is that you have this, everything that we hold to be true, right? Like even little kids, they know who Bill Gates is and who Elon Musk is and who Jeff Bezos is, right? Because that's what's thrown in everyone's face all the time, that there's battle for the richest person in the world. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a wealth shamer. The problem is that people look at that and they think that that's not available to them. So I'm not going to do anything, and that's evil. Our natural state is abundance, not limited, not scarcity, right? Like you said earlier, you're trying to pull men out of the scarcity mindset. Well, there's different levels that men live in. The research shows, about 45% are in scarcity, 40% are in survival, 10% are in success, and only 5% are in significance. And significance is that next level after success, where you're so situated in all areas of your life that you just give back all the time. And your life is based around service. What, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, brother. Yeah. Yeah, man. And I've identified for myself, and I think that your success blueprint probably speaks to this as well in the work that you do and the way that you live your life. But I found that living this kind of multidimensionally, engaged life, or, living fully and being intentional about expansion in kind of all key areas, for me, just to be simple, is like, the domain of like body and health, the domain of relationships, whatever that means to us, the domain of like work, finances, and I think purpose is tied in there, and also the domain of spirituality. And these are all interconnected, but kind of those are kind of like the key areas that I focus on. For me, I've identified that if I'm not simultaneously focused on expansion and power in all those key areas simultaneously each day, if one's off, there's like a energy leak, a power leak, and it's like it affects all of them. So it's
Oh, yeah.
crucial to like have all cylinders firing simultaneously to be fully turned on, empowered, engaged. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's ever evolving. You got to just flow with it like the river of life, man. And so much of it is, I always think of it like a table. You have your four areas of life, like you said. And when you're missing a leg on the table, it's bound to start tipping.
Yeah.
And so you can't get to a place though where you have a level of awareness on those until you start asking yourself what your level of satisfaction in those areas are, right? And that's something that is just, you have to answer for yourself, right? Everyone has a lot of ideas of how you should live your life. Our parents, our teachers, adults in general when you're growing up, sometimes even in our relationships with brothers and uncles and even our spouses, but ultimately it has to come from you. So one of the things that I do specifically is I always go back to my values, right? I did a life diagnosis of all the levels of satisfaction in my life and corrected these things and built what I value most in life. And then that's my barometer of how I'm showing up in those domains, right? And when you do that on a day-to-day basis and sit in contemplation and be reflective of your behavior, because if you want to know what you value, just look at your behavior, because your behavior is reflective of what you value, right? So if you're not comfortable with where you're at, then you need to get clear on your values so that it reflects what you really want for the vision of your life. And so for me, it's very practical. I'm very practical in my approach to that. Like, here's my values. My top 5 are love, faith, integrity, money, legacy. And I use those daily to say, how did I do? Did I royally, mess some shit up that I need to fix? Is an amends necessary to someone or something, or is it, a little bit smaller just internally with me? Like, I can show up better next time. I kind of overreacted. Like, I've been intentional for 1.5 years now on patience. So, it's those types of things, right? And then, also patting yourself on the back where you really did show up in the man that you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not always a beat down, man. And you have to balance that out too and say, man, I did well this time. Like, this person was freaking out and I didn't buy into it. And I just asked them a question and got them out of it and de-escalated it. And I didn't have to overpower them with my rightness, and
Yeah.
everything worked out.
Yeah. I love that, man. Joe, may I ask you this? If a man is this idea of living a more fully engaged, multidimensional life, living more in alignment with like this success blueprint, and really experiencing true success, whatever that might mean for him in every key area of life, like what would be the first kind of step or couple steps in someone beginning to explore that for themselves and moving more into that?
Seeking. You always find what you're looking for.
Amen, brother.
It's literally that simple,
Yeah.
right? It's as old as the old book, like unchanging, like irrefutable spiritual principles in life, whether you agree with them or not, is very irrelevant to their truth, right? And that is that, like, asketh and ye shall receive it, right? Yeah. Seeketh and ye shall find it, knocketh and shall be opened unto you.
Yes.
And so the reality is, and I'm not very religious, but I seek a lot of spiritual enlightenment and principles that are great tools for practical application of generating results in thinking and in life, right? So, like, these things, when you do that, so what are you seeking right now? Like, well, like, if you need a job, like, what do? Well, you get your resume together and then you go start looking for a job. Like, if you want a relationship, well, like, you get your profile set up and then you start going to look for a girlfriend. Like, if you want to gain some sort of spiritual development, you can go read some books, or, go to a church, or go find some community that's talking about these things. It's not really difficult. The only thing that's difficult is your sorry ass mind that keeps telling you it's difficult. And so what I have found is that over the years, a lot of the results and a lot of the success that I've gotten is as a result of what I've been seeking. Like, I wanted to learn how to be in a healthy relationship because that wasn't embodied to me.
Yes.
Okay, well, then I went and got help for it. I don't care if people think that there's some stigmatization of therapy. Like, that stigmatization and what other people think about that is not more important than me wanting to be in a happy, healthy relationship. Like, that's what I want. I don't care, right? Or like, if I wanted to get a drink, right? Like, think about it this way. This is what I tell people. There was a point in my life where I had no job, no car, no license, no bank account, no money, and I was living on someone's couch. And by 3 to 5 p.m., I could be at a bar somewhere with a drink in my hand. That's freaking incredible.
Yeah.
That's grit, ambition, perseverance, that's direction, that's purpose. That's all those things that are available to me within myself. It's just what I was seeking was poison for me.
Yeah.
Now I use the same intensity, the same perseverance, the same urgency, the same ambition, except now it's for seeking God, seeking to be of service, seeking of impacting people's lives, seeking money, seeking healthy relationships, right? Seeking deep connection on another level with my wife so that we can have passionate sex. All these things, right? What are you seeking?
Yeah, brother. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Yeah, man, I've been finding that more and more to be true in my life. The Bible does say, knock, and the door shall be open, seek, and you shall find. And it just sounds like, yeah, whatever. But when you really start practicing that, man, I've found the same in my journey. The more I seek, the more I ask, it's always answered to me. It's always given at least the next step. Maybe not the whole answer, but the next step is always there. And it's really up to me. It's up to me just to take that next step, because if you want to talk about, if you want to put it in that kind of context, God can't steer a parked car. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get it in motion. You know what I'm saying?
That's
and
right.
I dig that one.
I like that analogy. I always think about it like I'm on a bike, and one of my good friends, Frank, told me this over 10 years ago. I'm on a bike and I'm pedaling as fast as I can, and he has the handlebars. And if I stop pedaling on a bike, you just fall over. But I like that. You can't steer a parked car. I'm going to steal that and say it sometime so I sound really, really profound somewhere else.
I dig it, brother. I dig it. As we kind of draw to toward the end of our time here today, brother Joe, I'd love to ask you, man, like what idea? It could be an idea in general. It could be an idea about yourself. It could be an idea about life. It's something that maybe you're understanding. What's got you inspired right now, brother? What's got you excited about life right now?
Loving more, and teaching and showing others how to love more as well. It's the central foundation of everything that I do. And if you come in contact with me, you'll feel it. You won't just hear me talking about it. You'll feel it, right? Because the electromagnetic waves of the heart are 10 times the radius of that of the mind. And when you get into your deepest place of your own humanity and you're really living in that space, people can feel that shit, man. And it's what everyone wants. And this is what's blocking them from it. So I'm doing everything that I possibly can to bring as many people from here to here.
Yeah, brother.
And the more that I focus on that, the more full I feel, the more impact I know I'm making on the world. Because when you change, the lie is that we're separate from, right? So if I'm doing the work to help someone awaken themselves to that reality and become that, it then sends a ripple effect on the collective consciousness, and you're really making change in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish to do. And that was birthed out of some low living and a lot of pain and suffering inflicted upon myself.
The pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, brother. Love that, man. Love that. Joe, what advice do you have out there? What would you like to kind of to leave maybe the men or women that are out there listening today, the fathers, the husbands, the men who are maybe looking to connect more and live a more purposeful and intentional life? What do you have?
It's the same thing I always say. And it's something that I learned from my teacher, Julio Layo, who's one of the founders of coaching as we know it. He's a master coach, a remarkable man. Courage is only available to us in the presence of fear, not in its absence. So remember that when you're judging yourself in self-centered fear, when you want to pick up the phone and let somebody know what's going on, whether you're a woman or a man, and give someone the opportunity to love you as you would love them. And when you do that, it's a wonderful place to be, because a problem shared is cut in half and a joy shared is doubled.
Yeah, brother.
So remember, all men want to be courageous men. And it's that emotion is only available to us in the presence of fear. So it's okay to be afraid, but then you must choose to be courageous.
Yeah. Beautiful, brother, and powerful. Joe, I thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom with us, brother. I'd love to invite you just to share, anybody that may be listening to this podcast, how might they connect with you, brother? What do you got going on, and what's the best way for someone to get in touch?
Yeah, thanks a lot. You can hit me up on any social media, Joseph DiRoma. That's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. That's where I'm heavy on. You can check out my website, joediroma.com. And my wife and I are getting ready to launch a brand together. Very excited about that. She's a master level Pilates instructor, and that will be the Modern Body Project, getting people into their bodies and start, getting that pain relief so that you can live the life that you really want to live. And I'm getting ready to drop a podcast myself. Very excited. That's the No Limit Men podcast. And be on the lookout for that, guys, because Matt and I are going to do a mini series specifically geared to different areas of pornography, and that'll be exciting. And I can't wait for that, man. You're going to crush it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward as well, brother. Well, Joe, thanks so much for being here. Joseph DiRoma, everybody. Honored to have you with us. Honored to know you, brother. Wishing you all the best in your future endeavors, and definitely look forward to continuing the conversation.
Likewise.
Appreciate you, brother. There's that. Stop recording.